What is up, guys? Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest podcast and channel. Thanks for being here, for being subscribed. If you're not, go ahead and hit that button. And if you're listening on YouTube, hit that like button. It's like walking in the room and hitting that light switch. Let's brighten up the place and get into this conversation. I just want to talk about this briefly because when it comes to this settlement that happened extremely quickly between Cassie and the monster, some people had thoughts about it, and I previously discussed this, and I want to come back to this because I didn't misread anything or misunderstand anything, but I honestly think some people misunderstand the way that this civil process works. Okay. The lawsuit was, when it was filed, when we got news of it, when it was reported, this isn't something that happened like without him knowing, because I already talked about this, that he was not surprised by this lawsuit. Okay. He was not surprised. They were already in talks to try to work something out before it got to that point. Right? Because the thing about it is, I don't believe that Cassie was trying to spare him. I believe she was trying to spare what she's going through right now, which is all of the world knowing what she experienced. Okay? Because the case is now settled. It's not going to be going through the litigation process. There's not going to be discovery. There's not going to be depositions, mediation, any of that. It's done. It's been settled on terms that they both agreed on. And so that's that. But the thing about some people when it comes to situations like this, when someone has been disgusting and egregious and they've done something physical to someone and someone is suing them in civil court versus pressing criminal charges, this is, again, like I said before, this is the way this justice system is set up and the way that it works. And even when criminal charges are filed and that person may be found guilty or whatever, they can also, what they do is impugn civil penalties on top of the criminal charges. For example, giving an example, what's her name? British. Yeah, I was about to say Bridget. British Williams, I believe her name is. She used to be on Basketball Wives. She just recently got convicted and sentenced to 4 years in prison for all of this fraud when it comes to PPP loans and a number of other things, right? She didn't just get sentenced to time, but she also had civil charges, or we would call that restitution or fines, right? So when the news came out that they had decided to settle the case, that both parties came to an agreement to settle, Aubrey O'Day, she made a statement and she said that money over accountability every time. Now, to read that statement, most would read that to think that she's disappointed that Cassie settled the lawsuit. But then she circled back when that was put out there to basically try to make it seem like people who thought that she was upset that Cassie settled the lawsuit are idiots. She says, I was talking about Diddy, not Cassie. She told her story. She was brave. The person that needed to hold themselves accountable was Puff, not her. Justice is a word that means nothing to those that can afford its grasp. And I'm like, girl, honestly, you don't really get it, because this is a civil lawsuit. She sued him. The only penalties that can be charged upon him are monetary. So whether it was settled in 5 minutes or settled in 5 years, or they did not come to an agreement and settle and it went through the justice system and the courts and everything, and then a jury finds him guilty, they're going to award monetary damages. They're not going to lock him up. So what she said really doesn't make any sense when she tried to turn it around to say she was talking about Diddy and not Cassie, saying that he needed to hold himself accountable. Well, look, what can he do in this system, in this civil system? All they're going to do is make him pay money. So what she's saying doesn't even make any sense. So it's like, girl, stop trying to sound so intelligent when you honestly don't really get it, okay? If there's something that you can do to get him to be held accountable in a greater fashion, like getting some criminal charges pressed against him or whatever, then go do it. But this is the justice system in the civil courts. It is monetary. It's not criminal. So what she said really didn't make any sense. But I said it before and I will reiterate it. Whether Cassie decided to settle 5 minutes after this news broke, 24 hours after the news broke, or 3 to 5 years later, ultimately the end goal was going to be money, because that is this system. That is this civil system. So I just feel that a lot of people who are talking about this stuff really are just talking out of the side of their neck, and they really don't get it. They really don't know what it's really like. And people making statements like, well, she was just more focused on getting money than being a voice for women. Listen, I'm sorry, but she did not take on the role to become a woman's activist or activist against physical and sexual abuse and violence or whatever. That would be her decision if she wanted to do that. But ultimately, this is about her. She went through all of this stuff. And for people to judge all of the stuff that she had went through and endured, I don't even really see how people can expect her to pick up the flag of activism for this type of stuff that, unfortunately, sex trafficking, all that stuff has been going on for many years and will continue, because I'm not even going to go deep down that rabbit hole. But a lot of the trafficking that goes on, it's way bigger than just a low level person that is, trying to go and snatch somebody up off the streets and get them into forced sexual labor for them to make money for, pimps and other stuff like that. There's big names of stuff that's going, like, do you remember Jeffrey E? And the rest, who allegedly took himself out while he was in prison? That man had been doing that stuff for many years, and it was a criminal enterprise. There are ex-presidents. There are big name entertainment people that were on his island, that were on the flight logs, that there's just so much going on. And a freaking Prince Andrew, you know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. This stuff is big. It's bigger than Cassie. So for people to question her motives and say, well, she really wasn't there to be a voice for women. She was just there to get her bag. Look, she does not have to be a voice for women. But honestly, her even doing what she did to have this lawsuit go public and not just take the amount that was offered to her before any of us knew about all of this stuff was brave for her. And I believe that does help some women to be able to say, if she can speak out, then I can speak out too. Every situation is different, so I'm not going to say that helps a lot of women, but she's doing this to help herself as well as she should. Because that old saying about you have to put on your oxygen mask before you can help anybody else, this woman, I can't even imagine how many sleepless nights she has. I highly doubt she is well rested. She probably is not very healthy in terms of her weight level, stress, anxiety, nightmares, all of the stuff that she has went through and endured. I can't even believe that people would expect her to just stand up and be an activist for women when it comes to situations like these. It's absolutely insane. But, people are going to judge. People are going to have their opinions. They're going to think what they want to think. But, the majority of people who think that way primarily are males. Let's just be real. It's primarily males. And unfortunately, a lot of them, they put themselves in his shoes because a lot of them could see themselves being a target I wouldn't even say a target, but they could see themselves receiving backlash for some devious, dirty things that they did in their past. They just don't have the type of assets and money that Sean Combs has. You know what I mean? So a lot of those people wouldn't think to go after them in a civil way to try to get some money. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, people need to lay off of that when it comes to Cassie and her settling and talking about, you know, Diddy and not being held accountable. Aubrey saying she was talking about Diddy and not Cassie. Well, girl, you really don't get it, because whether he decided to cave in an hour after the lawsuit went public, or 24 hours after, 365 days after, 2 years, 3 years, ultimately the end goal or end game in this situation was always going to be money. So her thing about money over accountability, well, in this situation, the accountability, the only recourse the civil courts has is monetary. When the guy that O.J. Simpson was found not guilty of taking out in criminal court, parents sued O.J. in civil court. The only thing that they could give, because they found him liable for the son being taken out, as well as Nicole Brown Simpson, the only recourse the civil courts had was money. They found O.J. not guilty in criminal court, but they found him responsible in civil court. The only thing that they could give those people was a monetary judgment. And I still don't think that they got that money, because I think OJ's been ducking that for forever. And I'm not laughing at it, but these people have family members that lost their lives. And all the civil court could do was award them monetary damages. They could not take OJ and lock him up in criminal court for that. So to think that he was going to be held criminally liable in this civil matter, it really sounds to the ignorance of some people when Aubrey says that she was talking about Diddy and not Cassie, and him, needing to hold himself accountable. Like, are you kidding me? First of all, he's never going to hold himself accountable. I don't know if she was expecting him to have the statement to say, I am admitting everything that she said, I did it, and here's a bunch of money on top of that. No, but that's normal. It's not right, but that's normal. In most cases, when situations settle, the defendant says, this settlement is not me admitting any wrongdoing or any guilt. That is normal. That is normal. And it's usually the case is dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can't come back and sue later. So I'm quite sure that in this matter, this case will be dismissed with prejudice. When it's without prejudice, it means that that person can turn around and sue again. So that's that. He's not going to hold himself accountable. So I don't really know what Aubrey was expecting. Ultimately, it was always going to be about money in this civil matter. And two, most defendants never admit any wrongdoing or any guilt when they do decide to settle. And as you saw, his attorney came out and made a statement to say that Sean Combs in no way is admitting any guilt and no admission of wrongdoing. And I said that before the attorney came out and made that statement, right? So I know what I know. And I'm still going to be talking with NYC lawyer Dimitri on Tuesday. So stay tuned for that, guys. Even though this case is settled, it's still a lot to unpack. And I just want to let you all know, don't be discouraged like people like Aubrey, who may be disappointed and feel that he's not going to be held accountable. I believe that this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I believe that a lot more is going to be snatched from him. And I believe a lot more is going to happen. So we'll just continue to watch as well as pray and just believe that his time is coming. The seeds that he's sown, he's going to reap a harvest. Because I talked about this before when it comes to that Diageo deal and how they countersued him and revealed that he's pretty much a fraud. He's trying to make it seem like Ciroc was his liquor company, and all he is, or was, because he's no longer with them, all he was a glorified brand ambassador. And he only put in $1,000 when it was supposed to actually become a partnership. They put in millions of dollars and he put in 1,000. Like, are you kidding me? So anyway, guys, he's a fraud. He's a monster. I'm saying it just like I believe it, just like it's been reported. I'm not saying allegedly. He is a fraud because Diageo revealed him as a fraud, as well as all, I would say all, if not the majority of his artists over the years have revealed that he is a fraud. And Cassie definitely has revealed that he is a monster. So anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. Thank you so much for being here, for liking and subscribing. I'm Beth, just being beautifully honest. So until the next time, I wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and now I'm going to say bye.
Inside all this tension, a feeling I never was expecting. I don't see the pros, don't know the cons, forget the